Hello and welcome back to EarthStock 2024 in the Systems Transformation Hour, hosted by Gaia Commons and the Hague Center for Global Governance, Innovation and Emergence. My name is Kara Stonehouse and I'm your host, bringing you into today the Environment and Ecology Day. And we have another amazing panel for you today on the cities and bioregions as grounds of transformation. I'll have to transform my voice here. Cities and bioregions as grounds for transformation. There, that's much better. So that's like to introduce you to these beautiful, we have a beautiful panel of women today. We had it also invited Joe Brewer, who really unfortunately couldn't make it today. He and his wife have come down with dengue fever and are in his wife's in the hospital, and so they're asking for prayers and love to see their platelets levels be healthy and clear of the dengue fever, so they can be healthy and continue their wonderful regenerative work for the world. So let's just hold a little moment for them. Yes, and we're here to answer the call for people who are working on the ground to make regenerative change, to really put the vision and the principles that many of us wish for the world into practice. Sometimes it feels like the systems are unraveling, that it's all going downhill. There's another report from the Climate Change Committee saying it's worse than we thought. There's tipping points, there's more disasters. But so sometimes it feels overwhelming that, is there anything to be done? Is it possible? What are we, who's doing something? What's going on? So there are people out there in the world who are doing amazing work with building community, built on the ground, making it happen. And here are some of these people today to meet them. So let's start with Furiel Purin. Furiel, hello, welcome. Glad you could be here.
So I'm happy to be with all of you. Really great, and hope that we're gonna. I'm excited to chat with all of you and get into the juicy stuff of, how do we do this better?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just read your bio so everyone knows. You're a strategist specializing in evolutionary social systems. Your passion for balancing spiritual and cultural evolution has resulted in solutions that support disruptive behavioral change, provide transformative tools, and empower change agents to maximize their impact. You're a CEO of Living Cities Earth, an action research ecosystem that facilitates and enables the integral development of cities. LCE, the Living Cities Earth, offers consultancy to city administrations and their local governments to engage in a co-creative process with their citizens. By adopting a holistic approach, they aim to help people transcend current paradigms and create a regenerative future for both human and non-human inhabitants of our planet. And in your role as the CEO, what I've seen you do is just truly amazing. The way you connect with people, the way you specifically reached out and connected with me to make sure I was bringing my best to the network, and the way we've dealt with some difficult challenges together and mistakes that I've made. And you've been so generous, so beautiful, so positive, so solution oriented. And this really shows in the way that Living Cities Earth is blossoming and growing. You're setting these conditions for success through enlightened leadership. So I love you, and I'm glad that you're here.
Thanks for having me.
Great. Let's turn now to Melina Angel. Melina started her professional path in theoretical and evolutionary biology, applying a systemic and cognitive view of living systems to social systems and communities and economy. So making the leap. She's a biomimicry professional with a master's degree at ASU, working in bioregional regeneration in Colombia and globally. Melina teaches biomimicry for social systems at UCI, activates processes through arts, and consults worldwide on regeneration and biosystemics. Melina is on the core team of Gaia Commons, bringing her expertise in living organizational development and impact measurement. And you coming on to the Gaia team, Melina, has been a real grounding, like, okay, we can do this. And you're also reorienting us. Don't think so mechanical. What's the life perspective here? So you're bringing these wonderful perspectives into that as well. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
Welcome all your generosity, and this invitation is really nice to be able to share with this woman. So I am just hoping to add value to our conversation.
I'm sure you will. Good. Let's introduce Karen Mueller, co-founder of Bioregional Weaving Labs Collective, a growing assembly of 25 plus international systems changing organizations, funders, and impact investors initiated by Ashoka and co-led with Common Land and grounded in a community of practice. What they're doing is really impressive. We're pulling all those large stakeholders together. Lost my spot. Its mission is to mobilize and support 1 million change makers who together contribute to restoring, protecting, and regenerating 1 million hectares of land and sea in Europe with significant and observable impact on natural, social, and financial capitals. So they're establishing bioregional weaving labs in 10 different countries in Europe, before 2025, so you're almost there, that building capacity and catalyze multi-stakeholder partnerships. Karen's co-director of Ashoka Netherlands, the biggest social innovation network of the world, and co-founder of multiple other social and cultural enterprises like the Good Family. Wow, Karen, can't wait to get to know you more, and with all this, learn how you're doing all this amazing work in the world.
Thank you for being here.
Mm-hmm. Good. And next we have Samantha Power. She's the founder and director of BioFi Project, the BioFi Project, and the founder and principal consultant of Finance for Gaia. She's a regenerative economist, futurist, and bioregionalist. Samantha has harnessed her experience working at the World Bank in the financial sector, advising finance ministries, central banks, and investors, and is now telling a story about the need to build a new layer in the global financial architecture that decentralizes financial decision-making and puts resources in the hands of people living in relation to place. Samantha has and her co-author published a book entitled Bioregional Financing Facilities. Reimagining finance to regenerate our planet and that launched in June, the same day the BioFi project launched. A collective of experts supporting bioregional regions around the world to design, build, and implement bioregional financing facilities, or BFFs. So I can't wait to be your BFF, Samantha. I think these expertise in finance are so important. Welcome. Let's hear you.
Thank you so much for having me here, Kara. I'm really excited to be on this amazing panel with these brilliant women and looking forward to getting into the conversation with the audience today.
So the format of the panel today is we're going to have each brilliant woman share a story about the work that's happening from their organizational perspective. We have lots of different perspectives from the city, the bioregions, the financing, from Europe and across the world as well. And then, so they'll have about 5 minutes each, and then we'll go into a collective conversation about what's coming together, what's the space between that's emerging for us. So let's turn it over to Ferial.
Hi there. Thank you so much, Cara. Those were such beautiful descriptions. And as you were describing the other beautiful women in here, I was just like, whoo, we're really needing to talk to each other, because I think there's such a massive overlap of our work. And in essence, in introducing Living Cities Earth, that I operate as the operational lead for, is this action research organization, or we call it an ecosystem, because our focus really is this integral development of cities. And it is really about life having the possibility to really thrive. And by life, we're talking about humans in relationship to the entire ecosystem, right? Because we're a part of something, and yet we've been developing and creating systems and the ways in which we live that is very much siloed from that ecosystem that we live in, yet we are intricately connected to it. And there's nothing, whether we think we are is not the point. We literally are. So this is really the focus of Living Cities Earth, is how do we address the challenges that cities are facing right now. And the reason why we operate on the level of cities, and so we also look at bioregions, towns, villages that we work with, because we think that when you live in a place, you begin to love a place, right? Because that's where life is happening for you. That's where your family lives, the people you love. And so when you're decision making, you're going to be making very different decisions than when you're making it in an abstract way, like a lot of our elected officials often do, that are right now in roles that they make decisions for large amounts of people that really doesn't affect their own lives in that same way. So for us, this is the reason we chose to work with the 10,000 cities around the world. And we just happened to, at the latest count, that there was 10,000 cities around the world, a nice little round number. And the thing is that we are also in a process where we seem to have a lot of experts. So Living Cities Earth has 100 of some of the world's most amazing people that I get to work with every day, who bring these incredible expertise for what we call integral city development. And that's that looking at every aspect of the development of a city, both its humans and all the other parts, the moving parts within a city. And how do we address that? Not in the silo, not in, oh, we have an energy problem, let's do something about that. We have a water problem, let's do something about it. Oh, we have problems with our social system, let's do something about that. These are interconnected systems, and you cannot address them in a siloed way. And that is the expertise that we bring. But at the same time, we talk about ourselves as action researchers, and we talk about ourselves as learners and teachers. Why? Because none of us know where we're going, right? We want to go somewhere. We've got this vision of a better future that we want to be living into, but we've never been there. So for us to be able to say we are experts is great. We have expertise. We have observed, we have learned, we've got incredible doctors and theorists and methodologists and innovators. But if we're not going to be in the heart space of learning together, then I think we're missing something great, because life literally is about learning. And in a way, that is really what Living Cities Earth is bringing to the city, saying, can we co-create with you? Can we share some of this knowledge, but can we learn from you? Can we learn together? And can we take that to other cities and other places, and in a sense, continue our process we've already been doing on this planet, which is learning, right? Can we do that more intentional? And can we share that learning with each other? Because for the first time on our planet, we have technology that makes it possible for us to share that information in an unprecedented way. So really, it is what we do. And it is really about people coming back to that essence. So it's about bringing more of the system to see itself. How can we, in Africa, we have a saying, sawona. It means to see you. I see you. How can we see our city? How can we see ourselves? And how can we appreciate it in a new way? Right? So I'm going to stop there and hand it over to you, back to you, Cara. Thank you.
Yes, that holistic approach is so important. Thank you. So let's hear from Melina Angel next.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm really happy to share this stage with all of you. What we're bringing with Gaia Commons is the capability to see ourselves as Gaia, as the planet, as functioning as nature, as being able to evolve into another stage of civilization, letting life passing through us and make us emerge a new organization, a new order of things. And this happens only when we are able to liquefy our structures and to go into the realization that there is no difference between individual and collectives. So we can live this, it's not duality, it's complementary perspectives. And that's a quantic reality. That's a quantic statement, that we can observe individuals and we cannot observe the collective at the same time. And we can observe the collective, but we cannot observe the individuals. And that's why we call that organization self-organization. But the actuality of self-organization is the capabilities to reorganize ourselves in another ways of flows, of distributions of information and resources, of acknowledging ancestral knowledge into how we are resonating in this new evolutionary perspective that it is just emerging. So what Gaia Commons brings is a platform of governance for resource distribution, profits, funds, and so on, in a way that there is a coordination and a collaboration way of treating ourselves linked with the territories. This is not like an abstract finance perspective. This is really bioregional perspectives. So we can be able to listen what the territory is saying to us, is talking to us through our own experience of life, bringing it into a collective to be able, from the governance of that territory between people in the scale that these people are naming themselves, which is a bioregion, to be able to manage a global coordination and a global collaboration, overlapping many complex layers of needs and demands and offerings, and that can be a structure in a way that it seems like a nervous system or a mycelium, where there is a flow of things and there is a collective construction. So the communality, it will be put not as first or last, is put into the consciousness of what we are doing from the territory perspectives. So for us, all the efforts are bringing this practicality of how to do this, how to govern ourselves, how to make this minimum viable structure to seed this governability for the bioregions to be able to understand and to bring forward a more sustainable, to regenerate our sustainability, to regenerate our capability to be part of life in the biosphere in a thriving way. So I think that that's like the main part of what we are bringing. So back to you, Cara. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's starting to ground. It's still big theories, but it's also on the ground, coming into life. So let's hear some more stories about that from Europe and Ashoka with Karen Mueller. And you'll just have to hit your button there.
Sorry, I was on mute, I think. Yes, so I think back into the year of the pandemic, when it all started in 2020. It was when us as Ashoka the Netherlands, we felt that we needed to shift our strategy, because Ashoka is working on a lot of fields, because our mission is everyone a change maker, and we have a large network of system changing social entrepreneurs. We call them Ashoka Fellows. They work on many fields across the world, but we felt that we needed to focus on a holistic approach, because so many boundaries were crossed. The planetary boundaries model that we became to come familiar with really disturbed us. So we gathered a number of Ashoka Fellows in Europe, And we asked them like, okay, you're each working on climate solutions or biodiversity protection or regenerative agriculture, new models. What can we do together to make bigger impact? And a long story short, that journey brought us to co-found the Bioregional Weaving Labs model, I would call it now, together with a number of other partners like Common Land. Common Land is a landscape developer working across the world on landscape restoration, and they have a framework called the Four Returns. So it means that, they want to shift the perspective to generating other returns only than financial returns, but also natural returns, social returns, and very important, the return of inspiration. And that really clicked with our mission of everyone a change maker, because we want to achieve that everyone in this world is feeling the agency to do something and to design and co-design their own lives. So that has a lot to do with bringing back inspiration. And now fast forward 3 to 4 years, we are working with 18 teams in almost 10 countries by now, from the north to the south to the east and the west of Europe. And we wanted that because we wanted to have representation of very different landscapes and bioregions, because if this approach, which is a bioregional weaving lab, is working in all those different areas, then we might be onto something that is scalable. And I know the word scaling brings a lot of controversy very often in discussions. But when we talk about scaling, we really talk about weaving, about deep scaling, based on creating deep trusted relationships between the actors in all those bioregions across Europe, so that they can find each other, get to know each other, learn from each other's systemic innovations, and see how they can implement maybe the whole model or only elements from it in their own specific context. And to achieve our mission, which is to mobilize 1 million change makers to restore, protect, and regenerate 1 million hectares of land and sea in Europe, we developed a strategy that is based on, actually 6 beliefs, I would say. We noticed from bringing all these partners together that first and foremost, it's important to gather all our knowledge on how to mobilize stakeholders and how to make them work together towards a joint vision and plan in a certain place. And we chose bioregions because we think they are large enough to restore entire ecosystems, but also still small enough for people to reconnect with the place they care for. So I agree what's being said earlier, that's so crucial. You make different decisions based on the scale that you're operating. But we also need to learn with each other. So we have a big a learning network that we facilitate all kinds of learning sessions with our weaving teams across Europe. We also think about how to scale those systemic innovations, as I mentioned earlier, because a community-led farming model in the Netherlands could maybe inspire a new kind of approach in the Irish bioregion, which is currently happening, for example. So we facilitate that interaction and we support that whole process. And then also we need to find new ways of financing. And I'm very excited to be here on the panel with you, Samantha, because my colleague Leon wrote the wonderful book together with you on bioregional financing facilities. So we're also piloting that in the bioregions that are ready for it and want to experiment with that. And then finally, I think it's important we develop strategies to mobilize change makers. So that has a lot to do with communications, with campaigning, with bringing the energy in a region, organizing festivals, really giving the people the feeling that there is an alternative, and it's happening. We only need to connect the dots, but also start, celebrating a little bit what we are trying to do here, because there's a lot of doom. And it's there, so we don't need to neglect it. There is a lot of pain that we need to also acknowledge, but there's also really something to celebrate, because people find each other, and more so, that want a different economy, that want a different way of living for ourselves and our future generations. And then finally, we believe we need to work together on changing policies, specifically in Europe on an EU level. And you can do that better when you are together instead of everyone for himself. So that's in a nutshell, I hope, a little bit of an idea. Sorry, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I resonating with that deep weaving and the celebration and the learning together. And you're taking this big vision of 1 million change makers and 1 million hectares, but you're like, wait a minute, that's just 1 hectare per change maker. That's easy to do. So
Exactly.
kind of grounds it in an interesting way. So thank you for that sharing, and let's hear from Samantha as well on creating those financing structures that can change the game for these.
Awesome. Thank you, Kara. Really excited to be here and to go after Karen. Such incredible work that the Bioregional Weaving Labs is doing, and my other panelists as well are doing such aligned and important work in the world. And we at the Biophyte Project are still kind of early in our work. The Biophyte Project launched on the solstice, so just a couple of months ago, the same day that we launched our book that Karen mentioned, that I just got a copy of, paperback, Bioregional Financing Facilities, Regenerating Finance to Regenerate Our Planet. And we are now working on identifying a couple of bioregions to work with to develop prototype bioregional financing facilities. And the book lays out the need to decentralize financial resource governance and to develop synergistic portfolios of projects at the bioregional level, and to create a new layer in the global financial architecture of bioregional financing facilities that can serve as a connective tissue between bioregions and increasingly concentrated pools of financial resources. And we are very excited about these first couple of prototypes and have received applications from more than 30 bioregions from around the world that believe they are ready for bioregional financing facilities. And we have also launched a community of practice, the Biophyte Community of Practice, that any of you can join on our website, biophyte.earth. And that community has already grown to more than 260 people. We have a couple calls every month. One is our field building call, where we invite people with bioregional finance projects to come and share and present on what they're doing, and ask the community for support, and also offer some of their learnings to the other community members. And then we do a Biophyte deep dive call every month, where we dive into a particular element of bioregional finance that we lay out in the book, or we bring in our partners to talk about different tools, templates, processes that they are stewarding that can support bioregions that are working on the transition to regenerative economies. And it's our theory of change that we need to move from a global capitalist monocultural economy to a diversity of place-based economies that are more sovereign and are moving away from extraction and externalities and can trade with each other and interact with each other from that place. And these economies are certainly more relational than the economy that we are in today. So I really my other colleagues talk about the work that they're doing to bring holistic healing into cities and bioregions. And we are using bioregional financing facilities as kind of an entry point for engaging in biocultural regeneration in place. And you know, the money is certainly something that gets people's attention, but we believe that these resources can be used to support the transition to economies that are less dependent on capital over time and are more embedded in relationships between community members, between communities, and between people and the more than human life in their bioregion. So we are in service to that. And there are many ways you can get engaged with us, and you can learn about all of them at biophi.earth, and that is where the book is as well.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you. I can sort of feel that vision starting to come alive as you're describing it. Yeah. So let's go into all of us together and just to reflect together, like what's emerging in the field among us? Where's it ripe for collaboration? Or are we finding that we're kind of, because we're all following this kind of divine calling, that we're kind of all aligned already in this coherence? So is there any little tweaking that's needed or just connections? So just reflections and thoughts in that kind of realm.
Well, if I may, Cara, just listening to all these incredible women, right? And so for me, again, it's significant that we're all women in this call. And I'm not a feminist, you know, by any stretch of the imagination, but there's something about, and some work that our organization had been doing on looking at the female brain, you know, how they're looking at now. We have developed, because of the roles we've played in the past, we've developed a different kind of way of being in the world that is now needed. And so we want to care for our families, right? We're not interested in wars and stupid things that we've been getting involved in as part of our evolutionary process here. And whilst I appreciate that process, I do see we've been on this cosmic journey. I understand that. But I think it's that moment where we get to reassess who we are. And I think it's, as I said, significant because here, for me, listening to each of you, there's parts that Samantha was just talking about. We're literally building a finance dialogue at the moment in Living Series Earth, where it's about, you know, rethinking this financing realm. And I'm thinking, why do we need to do that when Samantha is already doing that? Right. And I'm listening to Karen and I'm like, whoa, that lady, she's doing some stuff that's so great. Imagine we bring that energy together. I'm listening to what Melina said. You know, so much of the inner work that she's talking about is also what we're involved in. But I think it's just really calling us so deeply to come out of those silos. And it's been something of a bugbear for me. It's like the flag that's flying isn't necessary. What I mean by this is, whether it's under Ashoka, whether it's with biofinancing, or whether it's with Gaia, Living Cities Earth, could we, I think this is the aspect within our own selves, the ego still, that has to be checked of the weaving that you speak of, Karen. I think it's now that moment where we are called to demonstrate an entirely different level of collaboration to the world. What is possible when we actually, you know, really human well together? So that is my invitation to you. I'm saying, you know what? I want to have a date with each one of you because I think there are ways in which we can work together that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Yeah.
Oh, I resonate so much with what you just said, Ferial, because I have heard a lot about, okay, what's the next level of humanity? And there is this flourishing world, you know? And I was from the biomimicry perspective, from the nature's perspective, like a flowering is sex, like it's just, a moment. What's next is incubation, is raising new beings, is having a uterus and create the space for bigger development in the biological term, like in shaping something new, in making the cocoon for the metamorphosis, is really being able to go into a creation space of the emptiness for humanity. And I think that that's very, very powerful, because when we work we are working now with 7 bioregions as a main focus on the governance of them, and how life is emerging in these communities in relationship with their own way of sensing an ancestral knowledge of the territory, which is so important, and we cannot be enough emphatic in bringing that connection. And this is especially important right now because many of the mainstream movements for capital in the world are coming into the creation of new markets, like the market of biodiversity, the carbon market, the ecosystemic services market, and this kind of reshuffling what is already there, and they are not really understanding what this potential of people, where the potential for regeneration the planet is in people, is the creativity, like this inspirational part that Karen was saying before, like is the creativity. So if you invest in the creativity of people, you have a period of regenerating the relationships, the social tissue of our bioregion, installing capacities of self-governance, especially financial governance. So you bring trustability, traceability, accountability, and so on. But what it is really happening there is the creation of internal metabolism, the internal indicators of well-being, which is mainly beauty, health, and vitality and integrity. So if you have that emerging from a community, you are creating a value base that it is increasing in time and it is not losing in time. So
I think
so from that perspective, is really like a touching the base of what we need to focus in. And this is the incubation part. We are incubating that. We are making the uterus for that to bring a planetary regeneration. Karen.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting like analogy that you're mentioning, and I also see that. I would say for ourselves, it feels like we are in our second term. Like the first 3 months was a bit rough, and you don't feel that well, and sometimes you need to, rest and take care. Now it feels like we're more into a flow, and other people are starting to understand better what we mean with our concepts, and financiers are knocking on our door to ask if they can join. Well, so you feel that something is shifting. But I also was intrigued by another panel that was recently, and you were part of it, Samantha, and it was hosted by R3.0 Bilbao, with the first wave of bioregional and the second wave And I wonder, because in the 70s there was also this big interest in bioregions and organizing people on such a level. And now there is a renewed, let's say, wave of interest. But how can we really make it stick this time? You know, that's what I hope to find out together with the amazing people like yourselves and others. Like what is it, what we can learn from that first wave, and really keep the momentum and build that alternative system in a way that it's strong enough that it lasts.
Yeah, thank you for this inquiry, Karen. And Melina was on that amazing panel as well.
Yeah, true.
And there's so much I have learned from that first wave of bioregionalists. They carry so much wisdom, and there's a lot that this new wave can learn. And I think what is different this time is that we have, well, first of all, decades of knowledge building on what the early experiments, the Back to the Land movement that was, certainly in some ways catalyzed by Woodstock. And we have new technological tools, new governance tools, and financial tools that they didn't have then, that enable us to implement really elegant decentralized decision-making and resource allocation. And I am very excited about that. And I also believe that we need to be building institutions to serve the movement. And the first wave of bioregionalists weren't necessarily institutionalists, right? They were kind of anti-institutions. And, that is what the BioFi project is trying to do with bioregional financing facilities, is to build institutions that are rooted in the latest understanding of science that tells us, the Earth is one interconnected organism, and there is no way, there is no garbage, there is nowhere for pollution to go, there is no room for externalities. We need to finance things with a holistic understanding of the planet. And that is what we are directing our energy towards in the institutions that we're building. And I believe that financial resources are also needed to catalyze the movement into this next phase. And that's what we're trying to support.
Yeah, it's a chronic problem in all these back to the land movements and eco villages and regenerative projects, chronically underfunded and overly volunteered, overly burnt out. So what are we doing to shift that story?
So Samantha, I think, is going to become all of our best friends. Because, a lot of our projects are so dependent on that financing model changing and adapting to what the future is requiring. And so, you asked a beautiful, beautiful question. How do we make it last? So one of the people that really inspires me so much with the work of David Baum, that speaks about regenerative, I want to say relationship, regenerative conversations. We tend to, in the past, and this could have been what was, our kind of ruins that we have to build from, which was, we want to go to tactical. We see the possibilities, the potency, right? The potential of something, and we want to go to that. And Melina, you talked about creative potentiality. And you do not discover that creative potentiality so often when I'm getting into meetings. Usually it's about, let's get a strategy. Let's talk about how we're going to engage. I say, stop the bus. Let's talk about who you are and who I am. Where do we come from? What is the heritage we carry? What is the story we carry? What is the learning we carry? More than what we learned in the book. And in that moment, in building those deep relationships, I think that for me is a key thing that is missing, is that we need to build the relationships that will allow us to make it last. Because then we can nurture that potential in each other, which is the key for what we need next. We are what we've been waiting for.
I know. And I think that there is very important to notice something, that being who we are, it brings us to the dark side. We are not just light, we are not just beautiful things. And I think that that's part of the reason of the second wave of the bioregioning process is that the planet, we have reached the limits of the planet in such a way that we are just confronted with the risks of it. And that's why it's also opening the eyes of the financial sector, for example. Like it's very risky to keep going with what we have been doing for a century or more.
Yeah, but what I find interesting there is that the finance sector is waking up to this. We notice, but there is still a tendency for very analytical approach, like you said, like metrics, KPIs. What is it going to bring on those 4 returns? And the 4 returns was also developed as a kind of bridging language, because people want a return, and we are saying now, because now we have investigated more, also talked to a lot of impact investors, and in the end, it is about, do they trust the entrepreneur, for example? Do they feel a click with the entrepreneur? That's when they really go excited and want to support this innovation and put money on the table. Are they willing to put their ego aside and agree to not have as much of a big stake into a venture as they were used to? Or can they go for 2% return instead of 5 or 7%? And it's really those things that you can only get to if you sit down with each other, or walk through the bioregion, or make a nature walk, or I don't know, have an experience together. So sometimes we are a bit conflicted at the bioregional weaving labs, because we to bring people together, because we know that's where the magic happens. Make that walk along the river with investors, and they have a different mindset to start the discussion. But it's also very it puts pressure on the earth, right? Physical travels is not what you want to do, actually, if you look at emissions only. So it's also like, how can we create those deep relationships that you normally create when you are physically together, when you can't do that too often, because that's also not what we need to start doing all the time. So yeah, dilemma.
And what we are trying to bring is, if the capital, it has been accumulated in such a way that there is exactly the same amount of scarcity in the base, is how to open the channels of flow of resources in order to really regenerate in a scale that there is a communality, because people are also like financial, like funders, are also in territories and are also in relationship with the planet. They are not just separated in their minds somewhere in the space. So it's like be real about the interconnectivity of ourselves with what is going on. The thing is that in the mindset, we cannot keep going with the insecurity of not trust, of separation. We need to heal the illusion of separation, and to be aware that from our inner lives, we are so connected with everything else, and that we can live with this complementary perspective of being an individual and being a collective and a planet, and and I have been saying recently that accumulation, as Samantha was saying, like in the 70s, this kind of, it was a fight. But accumulation is something that happens in nature. A tree is a super big accumulation of carbon and hydrogen and nitrogen, and it's biomass. But a tree needs to build a forest through their relationships with so many species. So more that you have accumulated resources, more that you are in relationship with the forest. And this, if that is the role you want to play in a human ecosystem, we are innovating in creating these channels and platforms of distribution and local governance and trustability, and in order to really connect projects, bioregions, organizations, networks, meta networks. So the idea is for us to find these key points, key strategies of hyper collaboration, hyper organization, hyper coordination, and I think that this part of the conversation is how
Yes, Melina, that's what we found too. Like when we pulled, same as what you're saying, and Karen, is when we pulled the collective together and made collective strategies and did collective impact projects, then the funders that would kind of notice that, and that would build trust, and they would say, yes, we're the government with our 900 million that we need to spend on this, and we're calling you because it looks like you're creating the field of trust here. So just really resonating on both those points. And Samantha, I just wanted to give you the last word on this big question of how do we shift that story through these institutions? What's that look like? Maybe a bit more precisely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the approach that we're taking is going to bioregions where there's been a significant level of weaving already, right? That the Bioregional Weaving Labs is working on and supporting in so many places on Earth. And making sure that they come together to develop a bioregional regeneration strategy. So this is a 20 to 100-year strategy for regenerating their place. And once that strategy is in place, we're supporting them to design a bioregional financing facility that helps them to invest in shifting the systems that they have identified are priority systems to redesign. And we, through the bioregional financing facilities, are supporting them to develop these aggregated portfolios of projects that together have synergies that enable them to be greater than the sum of their parts. And then we support them to map potential funding sources within their bioregion and then bring that funding to those portfolios of projects. So that's kind of the recipe book that we're using, and that's all laid out in the Bioregional Financing Facilities book. So I hope some of the folks here listening today will take a look at that, and looking forward to really continuing the conversation with all of these amazing panelists and folks in the audience today.
Great. So we're coming to our closing round now. So just any last nuggets of wisdom that each of you would like to share, maybe starting with Ferial, if you're ready, or you can pass if you want to wait a second.
So actually just listening again, listening intently, for me, when I see, groups coming together, often there is a breakdown that happens because we find it very challenging to do the humaning well together. So my invitation for all of us really is how can we create the kind of, how can we see when there is stresses and strains, that it is not so that we would fight. It is so that there are indicators for how to negotiate. What is challenging here? How do we renegotiate it? So it really just is continuing that learning. And for me, that is humaning well together, is how do we learn to do all of this with major complexity? Like Melina said, acknowledging there, and also living with that thing of, we're not going to get it right. We're just going to do our best together. And that grace that we can then extend to each other. For you know what? Melina's doing her best Kara's doing her best. Karen's doing her best. Samantha's doing her best. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I would like to invite us all, if you're not already doing it, to wonder wherever you are now, also on the call, like, do you know in which bioregion you are at the moment? I didn't know, I live in Utrecht. That's what we're used to say, I have a street name. I was born in Rotterdam. That's the kind of information that you what is the bioregion that you're in? Where's your water coming from? What is so special about the ecological features, but also the cultural features? And as soon as you start investigating, I promise you'll get excited. And so it's really an invitation to explore.
That's cool.
I would just say, from that invitation, we realize that the internal indicators coming from the heart, coming from our real relationships and connections, are not the external indicators of a financial or ecosystem or economic system, or it's not measured by something outside. It is really measuring how we can vibrate and resonate with the beauty of life through us. And that's what really has value.
And that's what also makes the coherence between us and all these initiatives.
Yeah, just a final word from me to say, I invite the audience members to get together with some other folks in their bioregion to dream into what big, ambitious projects they might fund if they had the resources, and then to start to take steps towards laying out a plan for doing exactly that.
Yeah, I think we can think much bigger and think of ourselves as leaders, as the leaders that the world needs, the kind of leaders who really care deeply and collaborate and weave deeply and learn together. That kind of leader. Good. So let us close this beautiful, warm, and powerful panel of system transforming and blossoming visions and actions coming into life. So thank you so much. I think I'll just ring my bell to give us an energetic send off.